These were the vows of Captain Vikram Batra as he prepared to climb Point 5140 with his troops. In a handwritten letter from 17,200 feet, Captain Batra proudly informed his twin brother of capturing Point 5140 and even a promotion to captain. But far behind the headlines of gallantry awards and slogans, a hidden crisis was unfolding. By May 1999, as the snow began to melt, the Indian Army was still distracted by political chaos back home. But up in the mountains, a much deadlier danger was silently creeping in. It was a local shepherd, Tashi Namgyal, who first noticed strange men in black robes digging into the snow. He didn't know it yet, but he had just uncovered the beginning of a war. His report was dismissed at first, soon reached army ears. On the 3rd of May 1999, forward sentries finally reported enemy troops intruding into the heights above NH1, the vital Srinagar to Leh highway. The nation was stunned. 132 occupied posts on Indian soil, held by Pakistan's Northern Light Infantry under cover of darkness. It was betrayal at the door. Overawed by loyalty to peace talks, Indian intelligence had assumed an incursion impossible in the harsh heights. But now the evidence lay scattered on the ground. Footsteps in snow, abandoned shelters, and the fallen comrade of an ambushed patrol. Signs of a well-planned enemy operation. Who had infiltrated, in what strength, and how could India respond? The government launched Operation Vijay, mobilizing approximately 30,000 troops in weeks. Entire infantry units and artillery were airlifted to Dras and Batalik, many soldiers scrambling up icy rock faces with minimal acclimatization. At brigade level, young officers led small unit assaults. The army faced massive logistical hurdles. Every bullet, ration and gallon of fuel had to be carried by porters and mule trains into heights of 16,000 to 18,000 feet. In mid-May, under orders of restraint, IAF jets began Operation Sagar, India's first high-altitude air war. Pilots found rockets and bombs underperforming in thin air. MiG-21 struggled to climb, while Mirage 2000 with superior thrust became lifelines. We had no choice but to adapt, remembered Air Chief Marshal Tipnis. The IAF flew around-the-clock sorties, though no aircraft could cross the line of control. Pakistan's hidden fighter bases lay but miles away. Every mission risked enemy missiles. 2 Canberra photo recon jets had just been shot down. The battles were brutal, but India's resolve hardened. The young officers in the Himalayas learned quickly that each small victory counted. And as one infantryman later wrote in a field report, what happened on Tiger Hill next depended on one very secret piece of equipment. The fierce fighting forged legends. Captain Vikram Batra became the embodiment of Kargil's spirit. Fondly nicknamed the Sher Shah, he famously radioed Ye Dil Mang More after seizing Point 4875. Even plagued by fever, Batra led his men from the front. On the 7th of July, as the battle neared its end, he rushed out of cover to aid a wounded officer. Fatally wounded by enemy fire, Batra uttered his final words over the radio. "Don't order me to withdraw. I will either come back with my head held high, or on the stretcher." The nation will mourn him with Param Veer Chakra. Subadar Naib Sanjay Kumar, then a young rifleman, stormed a Pakistani bunker at Flat Top. He charged alone through a storm of bullets, even after being shot in the chest, and killed the enemy gunners with his bare hands. Only then did his platoon advance and secure the feature. Despite injuries, he refused to be evacuated, reads the official citation. His actions inspired others to capture Flat Top. Lieutenant Manoj Pandey, leading 111th Gorkha Rifles, earned the PVC for Tiger Hill. A proud Gorkha, he led his company uphill under heavy fire. Wounded twice, he continued fighting until mortally wounded on the 3rd of July. His last phone call home told his mother, "Keep me posted in case I am martyred." Paramveer Chakra recipients, Yogendra Singh Yadav and Sanjay Kumar became household names. Grenadier Y.S. Yadav, still a teenager, took 15 bullets but lived to lead his men to take Tiger Hill's peak. Rifleman Sanjay Kumar's fearless charge at Flat Top was so extraordinary that his character would later appear in films. Each hero's story carried the hopes of a nation and the hearts of their comrades. They climbed walls, they braved avalanches, they never gave up. These stories, etched forever in India's memory, remind us that even in dire straits, courage can move mountains. The Kargil heights were an enemy in themselves. At altitudes of 16,000 to 18,000 feet, the mountains were razorbacks of rock and snow. Summers brought blizzards, nights plunged to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Soldiers wore multiple layers and still risked frostbite. Every step uphill was a struggle. India's tanks and heavy guns couldn't be used. Artillery shells had to be carried up by men and mules. We'd carry food and ammunition in soup cans on our backs, recalled one infantryman. Mines and barbed wire left on some captured posts slowed advances. Crampons and oxygen had to be improvised. Indian commanders later wrote that Kargil marked a classic case of mountain warfare. Attackers need many more men to dislodge entrenched defenders. India's troops had roughly 30,000 soldiers in theatre facing nearly 5,000 intruders. The defenders on high ground had clear lines of fire over everything below. India's troops sometimes had to climb vertical cliffs in pitch dark, ropes and bayonets tearing at frozen flesh. The logistical bottleneck was equally crippling. The only supply road, NH1 itself, was under enemy shellfire. Helicopters made dangerous sorties, often losing fuel in the thin air. All the while, stormy weather meant planned airdrops of ammunition and supplies had to be improvised or cancelled. Yet amidst these hardships, the Air Force began to turn Kargil's harshest element to India's advantage. The rarefied air lent extra lift to the Mirage 2000 engines. By late May, these jets began dropping new laser-guided bombs that would prove decisive. But how did India acquire this cutting-edge technology under the shadow of international sanctions?
India conducted 3 underground nuclear tests in the Pokhran range.
Just weeks before, India's test of nuclear weapons at Pokhran 2, May 1998, had triggered worldwide condemnation and sanctions. Western media and diplomats now judged India for its nuclear ambitions rather than its security needs. In fact, as a Brookings commentator observed, the US had been preoccupied with non-proliferation concerns after the tests. For New Delhi, it felt as if the world had turned a deaf ear to an existential threat on its borders. US President Bill Clinton, embroiled in nuclear diplomacy, initially pressured India to negotiate. No major power stepped forward with military aid. Russia and China offered only diplomatic engagement. The UN Security Council issued a resolution condemning the incursion, encouraged by the US, but stopped short of criticizing Pakistan. The nuclear test seemed the final blow to hopes for better ties, notes one analyst. The Kargil conflict was framed in global capital as another Kashmir flare-up, rather than the larger gamble India saw it as. In the diplomatic realm, India stood isolated. Yet India's leaders had no choice but to fight. The Army and Air Force had to innovate with what they had. Air bases at Ambala, Adampur and Srinagar were turned into mission command centers overnight. Enemy drones had spotted Indian buildups, so army units traveled in radio silence. Amid this international silence, the only support came from the grit of the soldiers and, unknown to most, a quiet ally far across the globe. This was just the beginning. The real storm was yet to come, not just on the front lines but behind closed doors in Delhi and far beyond India's borders. In the next episode, we uncover how a silent ally stepped in and changed the course of the Kargil war forever. Don't miss it, subscribe, and I'll see you in episode 2. Jai Hind.